All right, so making each other better. You talked about this earlier. Oftentimes, like there's this dynamic within a team where the leader's always going to be the person keeping people accountable, and that's not the same on super teams, which I really enjoy because that's what I try to tell. It's a peer-based accountability that you talk about. Can you dive into that?
Yeah, in our research, we asked people a simple question. We said, when things go wrong on your team, who do you feel worse about letting down? Do you feel worse about letting down your manager, or do you feel worse about letting down your teammates? On super teams, it wasn't even close. 82% said, I feel worse about letting down my teammate. And, it reminds me of a quote from the coach of the Minnesota Golden Gophers. It's a college football team. PJ Fleck is the name of the coach. And he's got a quote that says, on bad teams, nobody leads. On average teams, the manager leads. But on great teams, it's the players who lead. And that's exactly the exact same insight as what you see on super teams. People work much harder when they feel like they're accountable to their teammates. They take ownership and they try to make the people around them better. And so that accountability piece is crucial, because what happens is you basically multiply the manager effect. If you're surrounded by people who are holding you accountable, you're going to try way harder. And the other thing they do is they raise the bar for performance. And so when you're surrounded by people who do good work, there's that sense of reciprocity. You want to do your part. You don't want to fall behind the group. You want to keep up. And so it's just about how on the best teams, just being around smart, ambitious people makes you smart, ambitious by default.
Gotcha. And I know there's some strategies in the book, but is it the leader standing back a little bit and not necessarily always jumping in? Is it letting peers have a chance to keep each other accountable?
That could be part of it. The other part of it is when leaders do something that is clearly beneath their pay grade because it benefits the team, that sends a louder signal than anything that on this team, we do whatever it takes to get results, even if it's not part of our job description. One of the statements you often hear on super teams is, would it be helpful if I took the lead on this? Very rarely do you hear that on average teams. On super teams, you'll hear it often. And, a lot of times you'll have somebody who does this naturally. Usually it's someone who comes from a sports background. But more often than not, people need to see it from their leader before they do it themselves.
That question you just posed, that would be the leader asking that question.
No, it would be the
peers.
The teammate. Yeah. And I've been on teams where you had people volunteer to take things off other people's plates. And that's a very different way of thinking about work. A lot of times people think, being a good teammate is just keep my head down and doing my job. But there's a difference between a good teammate and a great teammate. A good teammate will just do their job. A great teammate will do their job and make other people better at their job.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There were a lot of stats in here, so I may get this wrong. But one of the things that I think I remember is that when people had downtime, they actually went and actively sought out, hey, do you need any help with their teammates, rather than just coasting?
Exactly right. They were twice as likely to do that. So we asked people, if you had free time at work, which would you be more likely to do? And the choices were things that ranged from I'd ask the boss for more work, or I'd go to a teammate and say, hey, do you need help with anything? Or would you attend to like a personal chore that you had on your list? Or would you go home early? And on super teams, people were more than twice as likely to say, I'd go to a teammate, or I'd go to the boss. I'd ask the team what they need from me right now. And, I want to be realistic. In some jobs, that's not possible because you're so overloaded. So the idea of even having free time feels like a fantasy. So the idea of like, hey, here's some guy on the internet telling you go and ask your teammate for more work. I am not suggesting that. But if you are in the mindset of, I just have so much to do, there's no way I could possibly ask a teammate if they need any help right now, I'm here to tell you that I think that is more likely the fault of the way your team is structured than how you're spending your time. And I think more leaders need to take responsibility for this, because this is why, people often ask me, like, what's the best way of starting to implement this if you're a leader? I say the biggest skill that leaders are lacking is something I call focus amplification. And it's the skill of freeing up your team's time, energy, and attention. And I think of it as the first domino, because once leaders master this skill of replacing the barrage of meetings and messages with opportunities for actual focus work, everything gets easier. People now suddenly have freed up to help out their teammates, to try new things, to build skills at work. But it really is a skill that leaders have just not been taught.